You want to put law mom? It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Looks so nice there. But also, of course, Elise, thank you for your session. And I hope you're going to come up with some other topics also to talk about.
Hang around for a few minutes, Lisa, if you want me to. Lisa and I were friends before you and I met, Vikram.
Oh my God, that's competition.
I don't remember how I think we just started talking on LinkedIn and then that was it, right?
Yeah, actually, Elise's participation inspired mine. So that's why I ended up signing up to speak.
Awesome.
So Lisa, what you have to do is you'll have to give me 1 minute to just put up this little flyer to talk about what we are doing here. This is what we're doing here. Changing the language of mediation. And Lisa, now you have to tell us about the conference. I'm not going to keep repeating the same thing over and over again. So I asked Elise to do it then. Now you have to tell us about the conference, what is happening, what's been happening, please. And yeah.
Oh gosh, I hope I can capture it properly. Yeah, well, this is one of many conferences that Vikram has put together purely out of a love for peacemaking and mediation specifically. And panelists are from around the globe, get to contribute different sessions and different topics and inspire some food for thought and some action. Vikram also initiated the World Mediation Circle, where people are put forward as peacemakers in their communities and they are trained, they're given the skills that they need. And of course, this is the World Mediators Conference, going on since the 18th of May and will finish in a couple of weeks' time. And was kicked off with our grand old man of mediation, Ken Cloak's birthday on the 18th of May. So he's always a prominent feature and a prominent guest, always kicking off each conference and symposium.
He's the face of the dispute resolution revolution. Yeah. No, look at the person that he is. I mean, everything that he has, that what you would want from a mediator, humility, the humbleness, and everything else. I mean, just perfect. So that's what it is. And then now it's about you and then the topic. So please tell us about yourself.
Okay, so as my middle name suggests, I am a law mom, which means I mentor, teach up-and-coming lawyers in South Africa, trained as a litigator and just passionate in recent times about legal education, with my personal interest being in mediation, where I've gladly ditched the litigation cap and would much rather propose a less invasive way of solving people's problems. And I'm not trained, as Vikram would decline the whole training thing, but I have in the process of the last 2 years discovered myself as a mediator. So I have all of the required skill set. And for me, mediating and resolving and empathy, that's all what I do every day, and it's part of my lifestyle. So I really don't believe that this is a job, but it's an extension of who you are. So I'm glad to have found myself in this tribe of peacemakers. And yeah, so today my session is on changing the language of mediation. It's something that I talk about in the legal space as well. So that's a space full of jargon. And I think that in mediation as well, with it becoming a profession, we've developed our own language. And I think that can sometimes detract, maybe contribute to problems not being solved and, just create barriers, just simply to the language that we use. So today I'm just going to put out some thoughts and just propose some simple changes that we as mediators can make when we're thinking about mediation and talking about mediation and even mediating itself. So Can I get into my slide?
No, Lisa, you can't. You spoke about the training part of it yesterday. We had this session about about empathy and mediation. We had this session, and what came out from that was there was this, of course, that discussion on showing empathy, and I said anything to do with showing, let's leave it to artificial intelligence. Anything about feeling is where those are the people we need. So now I've understood how to explain this training aspect, because Eunice was going through, this is what you should do, this is how you should talk to them. I said all this artificial intelligence would do a great job doing. Where is the feeling? Are you feeling it or not? So
Yeah.
so that came out from this entire training thing, that it totally, in a way, whatever I keep saying, I think I get validation from that, because how do you even tell people to show empathy? I mean, that's really a little, I mean, they're not the best thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess even the people that we are mediating, whose issue we are mediating, how do you get them to show empathy to each other and to feel what the other one is feeling? So
The show and the feel. The difference is the show and the feel. That's the difference.
Because sometimes the feel can be the show can be disconnected from the feel. So then we got a bit of a artificial process going on. It's just to please the mediator. So you don't want,
Okay, Lisa, now you can share.
I can share. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
And Boniswa and Precious.
Yeah. Forgive me. I didn't know I wasn't meant to share it. So I told them to join via YouTube. Okay, so they join in via there. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll just enlarge, making it large.
But let me just say, Boniswa, if she wants to join the Zoom link, Zoom session, Boniswa, please join the Zoom session, because now you are going to be a panelist. You are going to suggest a topic, because she's putting a comment on YouTube that I'm watching. Join in. There's no issue. Please.
They actually just joined my team, so my work team. So I thought it'd be a nice exposure.
Yeah.
Just
please ask her to join. Tell her
see what
join.
I'm doing. Yeah, they're all law students, so some of them are graduates, recent graduates, some of them are final year. So I give all of them the opportunity. Which now my grandfather of a laptop doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, good. So here are my 4 little lollipops. Changing the language of mediation. That's my presentation today. So I want to start off by emphasizing that we need terminology and concepts, right? So in any field, as the field grows and we discover more things about it, you need to form a language, okay? And I think Elise would have some, something to say on this regard. You need to form a language within and around any kind of process or any kind of field of study. So allow us to, at least as professionals, to grasp what we are doing and to understand what we are doing. So we need definitions and we need concepts to know what we are doing, right? So there is a place definitely in the mediation process for terminology and concepts, however, jargony they sound, or however technical, or however psychological they sound, or scientific. There is a place for it. So this presentation is not to demonize any and all of the terminology that we use and we read, and we some of us have imbibed over years of practice, but it's just, I guess, to put it in its rightful place and to take it out of places where it need not be, right? So in mediation, we need our terminology and we need our concepts. We need to know what we're doing. where we're taking parties, how we're getting them there, what we need them, what's needed, or what's required of them at the end, during and at the end of the process. So as I mentioned in my intro, I'm very passionate about simple language. So I do believe that even in a space where we are sort of offering services to people, and in this case, mediation or even in law, we have to be able to communicate. And the main purpose of language, any language, is communication. And communication is transferring meaning, okay, from one person to the next for practical purposes. So you want that communication, you want the communication to achieve something, right? And in the mediation context, obviously it's critical, it's pivotal, because in that space, we as mediators and the people whose issue we are mediating, so we have to facilitate the process. So we have to facilitate the transfer of meaning from one person to another and relay, the opposites to the receiver of the message in order to get them closer to resolution. So if our language is of the nature that it must achieve that. It must achieve that transfer and that feedback. If we want nothing to be lost in the process, and we want messages to be going forth, because we are not speaking for we are not speaking for the people, and we are not putting words in their mouths. But in that process, we must have the adequate, simple language to make sure that the meaning and the feedback is transferred and relayed, and that nothing is lost, and that we are sort of chugging towards resolution with, the clearest picture of what's happening. Okay. Communication, I thought it'll be useful to touch on communication, and I'm also big on communication and just keeping lines open. In any situation, I think if communication lines are kept open, everyone knows what's going on. So part of the mediator's job or part of the mediator's role is to facilitate the communication, like I said, through simple language. And it's having the ability to change thoughts into a form that is spoken. So sometimes when people come to the mediation space, wherever that may be, it's not always easy to decipher what the problem is. And sometimes it's just a whole lot of thoughts and feelings, and then you have to basically translate that or help the people to come to a sufficient translation or an adequate or accurate translation, right? And of course, in hearing what the grievance is, you have to be able to also communicate what the party against whom the grievance is lodged, what they have to say. So what do they perceive to be the meaning of what has been described as the problem, right? And the mediator facilitates, guides communication, so that we know what the problem is, and you know what the other party thinks of what you think of the problem, okay? And then, we're off to a start, right? So it's this whole thing of, can we communicate simply? How do we communicate simply as mediators? And of course, in communication, we need language, right? So what kind of language are we using to communicate and to facilitate communication, right? So mediators should have the ability to change thoughts into spoken words, and we're always looking for what's not being said. So we should be able to facilitate the transformation of people's thoughts and feelings into simple language that resonates with them. Okay, so if I say, and this is what we would call, I would say roughly speaking, reframing, or we would say back to maybe the party who has the grievance, okay, is this what you are saying? Okay, and of course, why I say simple language is when you relay that message back to them, and of course the other party who's hearing hears how you have translated this person's feelings and thoughts and sort of heard what they were not saying, and then you tell it back to them and you say, is this from what I'm hearing, I'm picking up that this is the actual problem. Okay, it's that sort of process and even the relay of how you sort of put that into words, that it must resonate. So I cannot use words that might be too big for the person, right? So I must say, okay, looking at, obviously you would do your various, assessments and estimations of the people that are involved, and you say, okay, if we're not a very educated person, then I've heard what they're feeling, I've heard what the grievance is. Now I've got to put it in terms that translate it accurately for them and also clarify it for the party against whom. So sort of the parties are pitted against each other. So everyone knows what the problem is. And of course, that's obviously the first step towards. Once you know what we're dealing with, then we can come to that middle ground, right? But it's always, I think, in my humble opinion, that it's key to identify comfortable language, okay, that accurately translates what people are thinking. So sometimes you might have a situation where it might just be sounds and, one word sentences. And so sometimes you even have to help them to articulate their thoughts first before you even get it out as a spoken sentence. So I think it's in my previous sessions, I referred to a discovery process that we need to do before we actually engage in the mediation, or what they would call the pre-mediation meeting in technical terms. I think in order to find language that resonates with the people whose issue you are mediating, is in that discovery process where you're getting to know the parties or the people, that you identify comfortable language. Okay, and obviously this is assuming that it's an English medium mediation. So you identify a comfortable level of English or even other languages, if it's something that's, Spanish mediator, mediating between Spanish people. It's key to identify so that when you are sort of putting the thing into words and you're saying, okay, here's the problem as I understand it, and you use words that are comfortable for the level, for the person's communication level, then it's basically putting it as they would say it. And of course, it's sort of, it doesn't now become language that the mediator imposes and says, okay, these are the terms that we normally refer to this kind of thing in the mediation as, and so I'm going to use that word. But you know what is exactly, or more or less, what the parties are comfortable with, so you put it in their terms. And I think that obviously puts a lot of, puts the ball, or puts a lot of initiative, I think, or responsibility on the mediator, where I say, okay, what's the level, what's the language level? Okay, can I go in with the terms that I know? Are those going to be grasped? Or do I need to simplify? Because I need to facilitate this transfer. I need to articulate the problem in a way that people say, yes, you nailed it. That's exactly what we are feeling. And what I need to communicate as someone who has suffered because of this problem. So I think that that's something that mediators need to do or should be doing, and not to assume that everyone's gonna accept. And of course, people will accept the terms, right? Because they say, oh, you're the mediator, you know the process, you know it all. So I'm just gonna sit here and sort of let you solve the problem for us. So I think it's very important when you are meeting with the people that you say, okay, I'm actually helping them resolve their problem. So I've got to articulate it. I've got to frame it in language that they understand. And of course, to do that, I've got to do a bit of homework and find that out. So again, mediators are sometimes required to be psychic, okay, where you have to find out what's not being said, okay? And again, it's something that sometimes you have to rely on maybe intuition, but sometimes you can immediately pick up, okay, I know what this person or this in the mediation is holding back on, and that is actually the problem, or that is actually what they want, as opposed to being entrenched in their position and stating that this is their position. I can identify what they want, but again, how do I articulate it and put it out there on the table in a simple manner, in simple language where that person will say, yes, you have interpreted accurately and to my proper understanding what I meant or what I was not saying. You nailed it on the head. Okay, and again, we have to identify that language that helps people or helps you as a mediator accurately interpret and convey underlying meaning and what's not being said, because I think that's like what they call the iceberg of mediation, where most of the stuff is not said. So that's obviously something that requires a lot of skill from the mediator. And again, because it's something that sometimes can be intuitive and you can be taking a risk, I think it's safe to err in terms that, or err on the terms that the parties are familiar with, as opposed to bringing in sort of high English or complicated language. So when we talk about changing the language, obviously it doesn't refer to English and Spanish. Doesn't mean we're going to change all mediations are not going to become Spanish. Again, all going to learn Spanish. What does it mean to change the language? I'm referring to the terminology, right? So what we would also call jargon. So there are different spheres in which we use the language that we have read in books. And myself, I've read a few of Ken's books and other authors. And we pick up certain terminology, and that's what flies between mediators, right? But when I'm talking about changing the language, I'm referring to firstly how we refer to the people involved, the people, okay? How we refer to the mechanisms driving or underpinning the process, and how we describe the process to people. Mediation education. Okay, so as you might have picked up, I don't refer to the people as parties. Okay, I say the people whose issue we are mediating. Okay, because my very first session was people being the heart of the mediation process. So for me, that was my sort of attempt to actually zone in and.
The participants, please mention participants. Law Mom has to put it out there. Participants, let's call them that. Last year, this is what we said. In the terminology and mediation, this was a good thing that Jeannie brought out. Let's call them participants. Session, yeah. So, please put it out there.
Okay. I personally, I think it's still a bit depersonalizing, but we'll put it there. So we'll call them participants. So I mean, we get as close to referring to the people's humanity. So they're not players, or they're not disputants, as I would talk about later. Okay, they're very much the center of the process, and we need to refer to them as humanly as possible, right? And of course, where we get into the jargon and the technical and the psychology of things is when we talk about the mechanisms or the different stages, right? And of course, how we describe the process, we often forget that we are speaking to what we would call lay people, but people that are not familiar with the process, or people that are not familiar with the language. So we would sometimes just put out maybe you'll see an advert by a mediation firm, or to say, come and let us reframe your problem and let us mediate your dispute. And there's all these things that we use to describe the thing to people in an effort to maybe advertise or to educate, but still it can be tinged with that sort of high mediation language that you need to have read a textbook to figure out, right? So how we refer to the people, okay? Parties, disputants, disputing parties, participants, okay? So we've now heard that participants is an acceptable way to refer to the people involved. I personally like to use the
I'll
word
tell you,
people, but
I'll tell you why I'm saying this, because when you say participants, let's talk about everyone who comes into that mediation as participants, even the lawyers, if they get that feeling they're participants,
okay,
or experts
okay,
coming in, or anyone comes in, let's take it as a one combined thing for everyone. So there is no feeling that, oh, these are parties and these are disputants, or these are, so no, we're all in it together for the fun of it,
okay,
kind of thing.
okay. If you're including everybody that could possibly be involved, and I can see the logic behind that.
And
So
I can
yeah,
see
I
Elise,
mean,
yeah, and I can see Elise had a smile, so she has something to say. Elise, you can come
I
in.
was just thinking, I don't even know how the term parties started getting associated with court, because nothing about court is a party. Terrible.
yeah, and I mean, a mediation as well is not. I mean, it's less formal, but again, there's nothing fun, nothing inherently fun about bringing your problems to a third person to actually sort it out. So, okay, so parties, disputants. I think disputants makes them sound really contentious, like it's like a gladiator in the gladiators in the arena, right? They're fighting to the death. So I think the whole thing behind the terminology even is like, what does it convey about the people that are involved? So I think participants, yes, it's an all-encompassing term. So it's a more desirable way to refer to everybody involved. Disputing parties, okay, that is something that I think even can apply to litigation, which again it conveys something very negative about the people that are involved. So I think minusing participants, I think that is terminology that is currently used and needs to change. Okay, so how do we refer to the mechanisms in the process? So we talk about reframing. Okay, we're talking about the resolution, conflict, conflict analysis, mirroring, conflict styles, active listening. Okay. Now, when I first started reading about all of this stuff, yes, my English is very high. So I took to it like a duck to water. I know what it means. I know what they're getting at. And I like to use it, to be honest. Okay. If I'm chatting to a fellow mediator, somebody that's renowned in the field, sure, you want to throw some terms out there, right? About, these are my views on reframing, or this is what I think about the conflict audit. Okay. And I think those are obviously, we have to have, like I said at the beginning, we have to have names for these things, right? And it's okay, I think, if we're speaking to fellow problem solvers, or fellow resolvers, we can refer to this kind of thing within our circle or within people who understand it or who might have read about it. But I think, this is something that should not find its way into the process. So when we are sitting there with, the participants, and again, look, if you're having a lawyer there as well, they are going to be perked up for the jargon. So when you speak plain English, it actually sounds foreign to a lawyer, right? So actually breaking down this language within the process. So reframing, how else can I refer to reframing to a person who hasn't read mediation books? How can I talk about a conflict analysis? Okay, for me as an educator and as someone who is very anti-jargon, for me, if I have to explain something, then I've had to say it twice. So I'm going to try and find the one word that will get it the moment when you hear me say that, you understand exactly what I mean. So for me, as a mediator, I would do some homework. I'll get the thesaurus out, and I'll be, what's another word for reframe or conflict or active listening? How can I deconstruct? If the participants have to understand, whether they are lay people, whether they are lawyers, experts that have been called in, how am I referring to the mechanism in the process? It's fine for me to know it in my head, okay, this is reframing, but having my listeners in mind, having the people ultimately whose issue I am trying to mediate or help them mediate, are they getting what I'm saying? Okay, and of course, if I'm imposing these terms, are they feeling forced to go along with it because I'm the mediator and I'm supposedly in charge of the mediation? So I feel that while these terms should exist, and it's important for us to know what we're doing within the process, I think if we can change the thing within, we can look for some, at least always keeping in mind the participants. So can I do some extra homework and find better ways to express all of these very, very valid and, backed up concepts and mechanisms, right? So another place where the language needs to change is how we're describing the process. Okay, and this can come in at the pre-mediation stage, or when you're starting out the mediation, when you're telling people what's going to happen, how they're expected to participate, what your expectations are, and of course, how we're going to get to the resolution. So, okay, what kind of language are we using? So if I'm doing my 100th mediation, and it's obviously a new group of people or a new pair of people that I'm mediating, whose issue I'm mediating, how do I break it down to say, this is the process, this is what I'm going to do, my role, this is what is expected. Okay, so how do I convey it in a way that gives them that education, and immediately they know exactly what goes in without me using, okay, any high or sort of complicated mediation language. So can we decide to use simple language so people do not ask for clarification, like I said? Okay, so if they're going to stop me as I'm educating them about the process, if they're going to stop me and say, explain this, or what is that, or what is the conflict audit, or what does active listening, I don't understand. Okay, so for me as an educator, and if I'm educating my participants about what I'm about to facilitate for them, then I must be able to use simple language, whatever the language is, whether it's English or French or Spanish, so that I can take them through that thing and I can describe the process, even when it comes to legal matters, okay? It's very hard for lawyers to speak, like I said, in simple English. But again, we forget that we're dealing with the man on the street. So he hasn't had access to our textbooks and hasn't sat for the same degree. So how am I going to break it down in a way that someone who's not educated can understand the concept? So I think this is one of the more critical areas where, because if we are speaking to parties, I mean the participants within the process, we got to be simple about our language. If we are speaking to people, speaking about it outside, so we're saying, I'm a mediator, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. If we are also speaking on the outside, then there's more responsibility too. People want to be attracted to what you do, and you want to sell this thing called mediation. And again, we have to pay attention to the language we use. And again, okay, the language also pertains to roles. So I say, I'm the mediator, you are the disputant. Okay, I feel like, yes, we must designate roles, But I feel we can, if we can come up with a way that, with language that equalizes the mediator and the participants, because at the end of the day, we all coming, so we face the same problem, likely. So we're coming, we talk about reflective practice, like as mediators, we're also people, okay? I feel like even the terminology that designates roles, I think we can, doing away with that kind of thing or finding some other way to designate sort of will, also tends to create rapport and say, oh, the mediator, Mr. Mediator is one of us. Okay, so you say, don't call me the mediator, call me Lisa. Or call me Miss this, or so again, roles, the way we talk about the roles can sometimes, I think, create some barriers. And also, I was reading something recently where it was like very technical and talking about, so when you're talking about the pre-mediation meeting, you're going to tell the people the steps of the mediation and the procedures and what comes after this, okay? And if we are going to be doing mediation under the tree, and I did listen to the session with Sarah, a very, very interesting session. If we're going to be mediating in non-traditional spaces, then as we're informing people about, okay, the process is called mediation, and this is how we're going to move to it. Okay.
Lisa, I'd like to add something, if I may.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have noticed, as much as I'm not a proponent of oversharing, especially when it comes to like a therapy space, I have noticed that in mediation and guardian ad litem work, that people seem to feel much more at ease when they find out that I have gone through the same processes that they're going through. And it's not something that I don't overshare about it. I just let them know that I have been through it. I have a case like that. I am also a pro se litigant in my own case, and that makes people feel a lot more comfortable because then I am on their level or they are on my level, vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. I always believe there's a place for that, even in what I do on a daily basis. You share enough to where they feel comfortable then opening up. So it's not a case
of and when it comes to divorce and paternity, which I know you do a lot of family stuff too, in America, 50%, the divorce rate is 50%. So we can assume that half of the mediators have also gone through their, whether it's not a technical divorce or paternity case, everyone has been in a relationship that has ended.
Let me tell you two people, Ken and Michael Lang. Both.
Yeah. And you and me.
What? No, not me. I haven't had any relationship which has ended. I mean, in the sense, I have been with the same person for many, many, many years, and that's the only person. She said.
Well, it's nice to know you're not part of the stats, Vikram.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, but Lisa, before you go on, Boniswa, I asked her to come in because she said, of course, you'd asked her to come in, but I told her she can be a panelist and come in for the discussion. She says I'm a student and I'm just about getting to know about mediation. I have to tell her that in this situation, in these things that I do, you just have to have a mediator mindset, and if you have that mindset, you've been a mediator all your life, so there is you can connect with everything. So Boniswa, please come in. Not a problem if you have the mediator mindset.
Come in, Boniswa. I know I didn't prepare for this, so but I think if we put on the spot, maybe sometimes something can come out, some good stuff. So you can come in, Boniswa. It's fine. So just even like I said, in my context as well, we say mediation is a lifestyle, right? But why is it that we slip into a certain language? Okay, when we go into mediation, why is it that we have we emphasize roles, like I'm the mediator, you are the participant, you're the lawyer, you are the people who we are resolving or facilitating for. I think it's important for what creates that, even to speak at the level that the parties are comfortable with, is to, one way to create that ease is to explain where you're coming from. So why, like Elise said, what drives you to do what you are doing? So that's why I say, there's no pro forma for any mediation, or no prescribed, no prescription. It's like as the situation calls for it, you're like, and we are emphasizing, like I emphasized at my first session, like we're all people, right? And the reason we got into mediation for a reason, and we are that by nature, that's our lifestyle. So I think it's important to, yes, not to overshare, but if you sort of present yourself as, okay, I also have problems, and I understand from that angle, and I don't have all the answers, but I'm just here to not even facilitate. I'm here to help you to listen to each other and to communicate better. Don't even say active listening and all that. Like, I'm just here to do that for you because, you came to a certain position and you couldn't progress. So I'm like you, I'm a human being, and this is why I'm here. But don't see me as somebody special or better than you or having all the answers. We are working together to find the answers. So I think we are also, the mediator is a participant. Can I include the mediator as a participant? I think. Well, in your head, you know that you are sort of steering the thing, but to the people, you need to appear as one of them. And of course, the way this roles, naming the different people or naming the different players, can sometimes create that barrier and sort of not or detract from any rapport that you might have created. So, and of course, the steps and procedures. As a lawyer, I don't want to be doing that. As a mediator, I don't want to be doing that. As much as I know the steps and the procedures, I don't want to be walking the participants. So, okay, phase 1 is pre-mediation. Step 2 is, hearing each other out. Step 3 is reframing. Step 4 is active listening. And we should reach this point by tomorrow, which is step 10. And we'll have the problem solved. Okay, that creates, for me, the process should be, because problems and issues are dynamic. Okay, so as much as people come to like a deadlock, but they are happening with real people who are living organic beings. So why do you want to confine something that can? If the problem arose, the issue arose organically through life happening, then shouldn't the mediation process also move in that organic fashion? And if we break it down and tell people, step 1, step 2, step 3, you come in here, you come in there, okay? I think we need to know that in our heads. But again, when we are talking about it to participants or even as part of mediation education, we need to move away from things like compliance and steps and procedures and stages, and only if we get past this stage, we go to that stage. And, so I think the process, you're doing away with this whole descriptor thing, that we allow the process to move organically towards the resolution. Because I think that nobody obviously is supposed to be forced into a resolution. So I think if we can just strip it and let the thing move. And of course, you will know in your mind, okay, we are stuck at this particular phase, and this is what I need to do to bring it, to move it along. I think just having that knowledge in your head and not tell people who otherwise won't be interested. Look, they just want the resolution. You're just there to help them, right, to get to a certain point. and to find an answer. So they don't really care about what your steps and procedures and what the psychology actually is and what it's called. So I think it's fine if we just keep that in our heads and let the process move organically. Eh? So simplifying the language, okay, or substitution. So like I'm saying now, we can refer to the accepted terminology, okay? So we can do so in our heads, okay? We can tell, I suppose if you want to, you can, if you're a purist, maybe a mediation purist, and you want to use the terminology, we say, okay, this is what we call it in mediation. We call it reframing. But say what words, and this is what it means, this is what it's meant to do, and what words is comfortable for you, okay? So whether it's, using colloquialisms or cultural equivalents, you say, okay, I guess you can have some alternatives, but you can say, okay, we're talking about active listening. This is what it means. This is what it's meant to achieve. But what's a phrase or what word encapsulates it for you? What would help you to remember what we are doing best? And say, okay. And so you say, this is the terminology you're going to be using. Ask them what are more comfortable terms for you. And then you adopt those words for that particular mediation. Okay, so it just, again, it puts the mediator, as Elise is saying, it puts the mediator on an even setting to say, hey, I'm not behaving as a professional now. I'm not coming to you with my book knowledge and my previous mediation experience. This is your mediation. These are my terminology. This is the terminology I use. And people have been comfortable with it in the past, but I'm taking into account your level of understanding. And are you okay with the terminology? Or would you like to propose alternative words that will make the thing stick, whatever we are trying to achieve? And of course, you adopt it for that particular process, and then you just basically speak in their language. So you sort of take the terms and you deconstruct them and say, okay, you're comfortable to use the words for active listening, you are comfortable using this particular substitution. If that's what conveys the meaning for you and gets the job done, then as a mediator, I'm prepared to make that substitution and make the change. Right? Removing offensive language. So replacing. So for me, offensive language personally refers to any language that depersonalizes a mediation. So again, parties, okay? People or participants, you can replace that. The conflict. I personally think when you refer to the conflict, you're actually creating another character. Okay? You're removing it from the context of the mediation. You say the conflict, the parties. It almost becomes like another role player. Okay? Instead of saying the conflict, you say your situation. Okay? Or your, not problem, your issue. Okay? Or the place that you are stuck at. Okay? So we don't create a character called the conflict, and we remove it from the process. We say, okay, this is your issue that needs to be mediated. It's your situation. And I'm focused on that. I'm not thinking about this abstract thing called conflict. I'm thinking about how it's playing out in your situation. Okay, and of course, the resolution, okay, or the mediation agreement, or the mediation resolution, whatever, say your best outcome. Okay, again, mediation agreement, it sounds very legal. Also, you might as well say settlement agreement. Or the resolution, it's theirs. Okay, so when I talk about offensive language, I'm talking about language that removes or creates separate entities of things that are otherwise supposed to be indigenous to a process. So the resolution is actually your outcome. It's your, whatever you're going to carry forward. Okay, it's peculiar to your situation. So I want to make it as personable as I can. So yes, I'm going to call you participants. I'm going to say your situation this situation is unique to you because you as a person, you have a different psychology. I've seen it play out differently, the same problem play out differently, but I'm treating yours as unique because you have a specific way of approaching it and you guys have a different way of arguing on the matter, right? You have a different way of fighting about it. And of course, ultimately what we want is to have people or to have an outcome that people are going to be able to implement on their own. So the mediator is not there, okay? Not like a settlement agreement in court that can be enforced by the courts if the signatories don't comply, okay? So you got to say, look, this is your outcome. It's your outcome. It's peculiar to your circumstance. It's as a result of what all of us have worked on, okay? And it's something that you are going to now carry out or carry further beyond the four walls of this mediation room. So I think when it comes to changing language, we need to keep it personal, okay? Because we're not, unless we're mediating AI, okay, we're mediating GPT or something like that. We're dealing with feelings, right? As you said at the beginning, it's like you can't make someone into something, okay? You either have it or you don't. So we're dealing with people who have complex psychologies, who all approach things differently. So I think just keeping it, when I say it's nothing personal, I think we must remove anything that makes a mediation impersonal. And terminology and the way and I know we're supposed to have these things and we study them in isolation, but because we want to understand them as part of the whole, but they can become removed. So things like the conflict, active listening. Okay, active listening doesn't say anything about the people who are doing it. It just presumes it presumes that they are ears somewhere. Okay. So how can we make that like where it talks about how people listen attentively to each other? How can we replace that? So
Lisa, I like this list because seeing the conflict on the screen, then I started seeing like a gray cloud sitting between two people.
Yeah. Yeah. And imagine if we keep referring to this thing. We use that for maybe a 3-day mediation, the conflict, or even the resolution. They'll be like, okay, like what is this character? Like we have they'll say this is my problem. Okay, we are having this disagreement and we can't resolve it. Like this is the problem. What are you referring to when you talk about the conflict? So we can create that barrier even through language, where you can artificially create something that maybe wasn't even there, okay? Because ultimately we're talking about parties that are in disagreement. They're still very much in their corners, okay? So there's nothing actually between them. They are dead set in their positions. And now you trying to bring them towards each other, but you saying the conflict, and be like, where is the conflict? We don't know who the conflict is. Like, I have my position, she has her position. So what's the conflict? Like, I think maybe I had a bit of a brainwave, but I think it's important to understand the mechanisms of conflict and the psychology of conflict, but we should not be using that, at least in front of people.
Because it gives it power to talk about it.
Exactly. So if we are constantly injecting that into the conversation, then it's like almost like a third party. Besides the mediator, there's another participant. Where's the conflict? You know? But all they want to say is, okay, can you tell him or her what my problem is? Okay, you as a mediator, can you help me communicate my problem? But I can't even do that. So again, we have to do what they need from us. And if we are constantly excluding them through our language, or sort of making it of less importance what they are going through, then, are we actually reaching them, or are we actually just doing our job and going through the motions, right? So my last slide is mediation language. Okay, how are we going to meet in the middle when it comes to this issue? And as in the legal fraternity, it'll never die, or it'll die hard. Okay. So I think, like I mentioned throughout the presentation, we have to, or we should be practicing care to keep the jargon amongst mediators. And for the purposes of just understanding for us, okay, like when we go to law school, even, like even the term guardian ad litem, I have to tell Joseph on the streets, I have to take away the Latin and I'm going to say, what does that mean to him? Okay, so amongst us, we know what that means, but I think we should, be kind, be compassionate to people that we're going to be helping, and just kind of just reserve that kind of language for the circle, because it's always going to stay around. So there's no getting rid of it. There's no completely transforming it, I think. But I think we can just practice some care in the context in which we use it, right? And people should be informed about the mediation process or the psychology and mechanisms using cultural, colloquial, or semi-formal equivalents. So again, and mediators need to work to find similar language. So if I'm mediating in my South African Indian community, I have to find what works for my culture. And our culture in South Africa is the largest group outside of India. Okay, the largest group of Indians out of India is in Durban, right?
Wow.
In KwaZulu, in KwaZulu-Natal. So, and of course, we are very different too, the Indians in the motherland. Okay, because we are like, myself, I'm third generation or fourth generation Indian, South African Indian. So we are like very much not in touch with our forebears and our culture. So we are very much a westernized generation, like the third, the fourth, and subsequent ones. We are very much westernized in our language. So if I'm mediating in my community, I might have to use some Tamil, okay, a little bit that I know, or use some, or find English equivalents for that, or speak in a way that when I'm telling people what I'm there to do. And yes, they have been doing that in our culture and in other cultures for a long time without even knowing what we're doing. But I must be able to say, I'm here to do X, Y, and Z, and I must convey it in language that resonates with the culture, the level of education, the level of English. Okay, and I don't know about other places of the world, but some of our people here, they haven't even finished like grade school or like primary school, but they got some, because they've been reading and keeping themselves up to date, they know like high English. But the thing is, we have to find a language that fits our culture. So I think that's the best way to serve through mediation. If we want to be peacemakers and we want to create peaceful communities, and also to sort of help discover other peacemakers, then we have to talk like the people talk. Okay, so
thank you, Lisa, for letting me sit in. Very
Thanks, Elise.
educational. I like it. Thank you, Vikram.
What is it? You're saying bye to us?
Yeah, I have a session right now. I have a
Okay,
client.
okay. Thank you for coming in, Elise. I thought we were going to have the discussion with Lisa after she ends the slides, but okay. If you have to leave, you have to
She's
leave.
black on my screen now. Is she gone?
No, she's
I
there.
lost her video.
She's there.
Well, no, I do just want to say thank you, Vikram, for calling me out about the guardian ad litem term. Now that I know that not everyone knows that term, I'm going to start explaining it. And this is what we just talked about is what you and I just talked about as well. Because I usually think, let me just keep using my language as like a show of respect toward people, but I could see if they don't know what I'm saying, that they may see that as a sign of disrespect. So I'm going to be more aware of that.
Yeah, I think the main thing is she got a connection issue, but I think the main thing for me has always been keep it as simple as possible. No,
yes.
I mean, don't use difficult words. Let's just let language be something which is kind of a universally simple concept rather than making it using those complicated words. Yeah. So at least you can't go now. Like, we have to wait for Lisa to come back in.
Yeah, now I have to wait for her to log back on. I know that they have issues with their connections because what they do with the electricity over there.
Yeah. But okay, so now in the last year's session on terminology and mediation, did you have a look at that? Please watch that session if you can. We did have a discussion on terminology. So that was something which is, I think, important. In language and mediation also, we were supposed to, the topic was broad for these things also to come up, but okay, language and mediation.
So why do we use participants instead of people?
Because, okay, as people in the process, let them feel a little more active. I think the active role that each of them plays, I think they should know that. It's not just being people there. Now you are participating in the process. Yes, sounds good. Sounds all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think it's important for people to feel that they in some way are involved. They should. But what I should do is, why not take a minute to put out the various things, the schedule. Should we put that up there? You also don't know, while we were talking, already one more session has got added. That's what happens on the other side. You were asking me, you look so distracted. What do you keep doing out there? There's a lot of communication happening. So, okay. So this is what has happened already. People, the heart of of course, Ken's birthday celebration, heart of the mediation process. People. Clarity, compassion, curiosity, how to get comfortable with conflict, redefining mediation spaces, neutrality, polarization, and mediation. Have you watched any of them?
I haven't gotten to watch any yet until Lisa's today.
Okay, so there is
I'm really treading water at this point, trying to keep my head above. I have too much on my plate.
Okay, so YouTube links are on this side. The YouTube links are there. So okay, this is all that has happened already. What are we coming to now? Okay, these two. It's on Saturday. Traditional culture and mediation in the judiciary. Dorothea is a judge in Brazil. So she's. Then of course we have these three on Monday: mediation, matrimonial disputes, order sheet. Are you going to participate in that?
What date is that?
Monday.
This coming Monday?
Yeah.
I think I should be able to. I'll have the kids with me. I'll have Victoria with me.
Yeah, so it's okay.
So I can. Yeah, you say that because you're not the one that she's with. It's very hard to do things when you have a 2-year-old who wants your attention.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense, look, Merit is obviously giving a presentation. If you were there, when you could mute yourself and just come in whenever you can.
Yeah.
Okay, so rational versus irrational negotiation.
I've been texting Lisa. I guess. It looks like she's back on with service now. I don't know if she's back on Zoom, but she's back on something.
It takes some time. I
remember we were talking on the phone last week, and I think she got disconnected like over 10 times, and we just gave up by the end of it.
Yeah. Well, that is an issue there. Okay, so topics still have to come in. Susanna has to give a topic. So this topic came in today, right now, collaborating globally for the advancement of mediation. Okay, there will be sessions in Spanish. I mean, Susanna's would be in Spanish. Zoraida will be in Spanish. This one, of course, people have to be confirmed.
Lisa's doing another one. Is that her fourth, or was today her second?
Today was her third, I think.
Today, oh, she's doing 4. Wow.
Yeah.
Look at her go.
Well, it's still nice listening to her. She has this nice, relaxed way of going about it, and she wants to teach these children. It's so nice of her. Mediation as a theater. That's going to be interesting. All of them are going to be interesting, but now.
She said she's rebooting. She'll be back in a second.
Trust and connection mediation got added also. Interesting topics come up.
Yeah, I want to see whoever's doing mindfulness. Laura Lorber. I'm not familiar with her.
You'll become familiar with her. Just go to the link, click connect with her. I mean, my communication with her was interesting. Yes, she's back. But she was. I mean, people talk about how many years, only a few years they've been practicing and things like that. And I keep saying that everyone, if you have the mediator mindset, you're a seasoned mediator. That's it. Nothing else is required. Okay. So, of course, what else do we have? All of them are interesting, actually. So much to come. My God, there's so much to come, and I look at it myself. It just gets added. I've told you, even the last conference, 1 week before the conference, no one.
You always do this. You're like the person that goes grocery shopping when they're hungry. They want to just buy everything.
What do I do? Look, I put it out. I'm telling you, this could be at least triple the size. But I mean, I have to cut at some point. But I just put it out there, and people start coming in, and Lisa's here now. Lisa's looking nice in that whole atmosphere.
All right, I gotta go do work, guys.
Bye, Lisa. Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Drop in for other sessions.
I will.
Yeah, this is load shedding in South Africa.
Yeah, we were just discussing that. That's an issue.
Yeah. Actually, because the session is later today, I didn't plug my backup in. So,
now
but
okay?
yeah. You want me to? I think I was done. Or you want me to go back to last slide?
Yeah, yes. I mean, if you're done, it's okay.
Yeah, I think I was done. That's my short for thought.
Yeah. No, I think in general, I'll tell you one thing that you did not discuss was the fact that the words that are being put out there, just the fact of neutrality put out there. Let's not confuse the user. Why do we need to use that? I mean, why do we have to say that the mediator is neutral? I mean, you'll have to have one discussion with those people to explain neutrality, which can be at least 40 hours of just explaining to them what neutrality is. And is it required? I mean, we have to really, I think the terminology has all been created for the mediation world between themselves. Is the user really interested in all that? I know.
No. And I think that was, I mean, what was I saying? Like, keep it in. There's no need to direct it out. So it's okay if you know it in here, but you need to, if you really interested in the people, then depending on the context, the culture, everything, all of those factors, you need to do some work and find some other way to say it. I think it's easy to default, like I keep referring to legal work. It's easy to default to Latin and even, compounded English words. And we're like, is the person that you are serving and helping, are they actually understanding? Are they being helped? Or they're just saying, yeah, you're the lawyer, you're the mediator, we understand. You got our best interest, we'll just leave it to you. But they don't actually understand what's happening in the process. And then we impose all of these language things on them. And then they're like, the thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them. Like we say the conflict or the resolution, they're like, but you know what my problem is? The person on the street is pointed, they straight. To say,
Well,
can you define my problem?
look, I think the most important aspect is the terminology, the word that we use, mediation itself. Why do we have to use that word? Let's use a word that they are familiar with in the language that they are familiar with, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
So I think that
yeah,
by itself has to be put out there as a message. Don't keep pushing the word mediation. Process, what is the process? Explain it in a way. It's the most simplest, it's the simplest process to talk about.
yeah,
Attempting
yeah.
to settle your dispute with the assistance of a third person who does not have the authority to impose a solution on you. That's it. Mediation done. Now let's get into let's start doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah. One of my slides was going I had previously was to say that we knew what this thing was, or we knew what we were doing before we had terminology. So I think yes, it's important for us to understand what we're doing. So terminology, we discover all of these things, we put a name, put labels to them, we say, okay, active listening, reframing. But we knew all at the same time, we knew what we were achieving the same results without all of the labels. So can we go back to that where the elders were doing the thing and they just had this way about doing it? They didn't know about, like you say, mediation process and neutrality and all of that. They just knew that there was a certain method to the madness and they had to be of a certain disposition. There was no terminology, no jargon. They just got the job done. And so the same elders would be called upon all the time, eventually mediating for the entire community. But nobody called it that.
Nobody.
So
Yeah.
can we go back to that where
Exactly.
maybe
That's
we just be we just be ignorant blissfully? Yeah, we know what the terms are, but let's just not call it that. Let's just go back to basics and get the job done.
yeah. Because that bringing people under the tree, that was both ways. It was the concept of actually bringing them under the tree, but and also the informality of the process, and that's where terminology also has to bring in that informality, because the thing is that it has got connected so much with the court system. All this terminology has come from
Yeah,
there. I
yeah,
mean, parties and all that we discussed in the last year's session, opening statement, all that. I mean, really, of course, Jeannie there said, okay, they use the word orientation, so they use that word.
yeah,
But all these things have come from there, and then it just continues. And then the impression that mediation in some way is connected to litigation or court system, that just follows through from there. So that disassociation has to happen. But
yeah.
Lisa, I also have to take in some comments that I have.
Okay.
Of course, there is Jacob from Kenya. Thank you very much for this forum. That's for me. Vikram, thank you so much for the idea. It's really impacting us positively as budding mediators. Elise, and thank you so much. Please assist me differentiate counseling and mediation. Please differentiate counseling and mediation. Very good question, which you have to take up, Lisa. But before that, Samson says mediation is very important to avoid some unnecessary proverbs like, if you find two brothers are fighting, do not separate them unless they will turn their face to you. Okay. Proverbs also have to be taken into account. I say, yeah, this is it. Yes, Lisa. Counseling and mediation.
Hmm. I think counseling is part of it. I think counseling is part of lawyering as well. But lawyers don't get that. They just want to put the band-aid and get it through the system. So I think counseling is important. I think what we would call, I'll say discovery process. I won't say pre-mediation. I think that's where you get to know the people. And before you even get into the thing, where you say, tell me what you're feeling, put your thoughts in words, or can I help you put your thoughts in words? So, when we are facing each other, we're facing your combatant or the person you're having a problem with, then these things are being articulated previously. So I think counseling should be done before, or maybe with a view to helping people just to clarify. Because like we're saying, we're looking for, we want to get to the actual issue. So we need to help people just to work through what they are feeling and to look for what's not being said. And I think that can be achieved through counseling. And then, of course, once you know what you're dealing with, once you've been through that process of, okay, you're getting it out of the person, like what's the problem, the other party, what do you need from them, then you can facilitate the meeting in the middle. So I think it, obviously it's part of the same process, but I think one is more a process of discovery. And then once you've discovered where people are at, that, through counseling, then you can get them to move a bit faster to the middle where you help them, you mediate the issue.
So the thing is that whether, I don't know what context the person was talking about, is it that counseling as on an individual level and mediation is not on an individual level, it is actually helping let's say be two people, maybe more than that, helping them resolve a dispute. So is that, in that sense, that little context, that counseling can happen on an individual basis, but mediation happens where there are two people at least and they have a dispute. For me, it's dispute, Lisa. I keep saying dispute resolution, revolution. Conflict is another area of discussion which I don't want to get into. So that, but actually sitting down and resolving a dispute, for me, that's what I talk about as mediation. And whether in counseling, are you sitting down and actually resolving a dispute or not? Maybe not all the time, maybe.
Yeah, it's just I've heard, I mean, there are mediators who meet with the parties privately before and just sort of discover, get a feel for where they are coming from. So I think that part as well can also involve some counseling. So it's definitely a one-on-one, but mediating, I think, is where you bring all of those perspectives together and you try to meet in the middle.
Yeah. So that's about it, Lisa. So thank you very much. Of course, no, I mean, before that, of course, your concluding remarks. Yes. How would you want to conclude?
Oh gosh. I think, well, it starts with individuals. So you're either part of that purist bunch who will continue to use the terminology and it works for you. And the participants know what you're saying and understand what you mean. Okay, so, but for me, I think there can be another sort of, changeover where those of us that are so inclined would actually truly take the people's language ability into consideration when mediating and really plug their language into the process, or make sure that we are looking for not easiest words, not patronizing, not condescending, but their everyday language. So I think we can start if we feel the thing has gotten too wordy and too full of jargon, then it is very possible to deconstruct the language and maybe even not use anything at all. And like I said, just get on with the job, without calling yourself even a mediator. So, I think there's always going to be that camp, and that they might dominate. Where it's like, this is the language, this is what we're using. We've always used this, it works. We don't fix what's not broken. Okay, but for me as a mediator, I would definitely take into account, make sure people are understanding what we're doing, where we're going, who we are, and that they are the center of what I'm trying to, what we're trying to achieve. So that's my closing remarks.
Yeah, because for me, look, the thing is, for me, because it's a grassroots movement and we're trying to bring in people at the stage when It's happening in communities, in schools and all. You don't expect any kind of technical word to go out. And in any case, it's not rocket science. It is sold as rocket science by institutions who want you to pay money to do their training to be certified. My request is don't fall into that trap. It's something that you have a mindset, you know everything about it. Let's get people to actually start using the process rather than the
Yeah.
money making racket that these institutions have created where work has not happened. And of course, people have actually spent lots of money. People have that hard earned her money, the savings. Also, I mean, I've had people here on my shows talking about it. Nothing came out of it. So don't fall into that trap. Let's just go out into communities, into schools, into colleges, into organizations. Let's create these mediation circles, get those right people together. It's not rocket science. People understand the process. If you just tell them in a very simple manner, if they understand everything about it, and it's been done for years, hundreds, maybe thousands of years. So don't get worked up about it. Suddenly, what happened is these guys that people lose their confidence because the people have gone into these trainings and suddenly they say, "Oh, I don't know what this is all about," and they had the mediator mindset. They have everything going for them. But suddenly they said, no, this is, I don't understand. This is some technical thing happening somewhere. And they have this way of going about it, opening statement and things like that. Please don't fall into that trap. It's nothing. It's very simple. Lisa will tell you how simple it is. Please talk to her. And that's about it. So thank you, Lisa. And lots of interesting sessions coming up. We were just going through it when you had disappeared. We were going through that list. It's become quite a list now. I don't know whether you go back to it. Do you ever open it again? Please open it. It's getting more and more interesting.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, my next one is on the 29th.
Yes. And you can join other sessions. You can join other sessions also. As a panelist, you have a free pass to all the sessions. Everyone has a free pass for everything I do, but panelists are invited for all sessions. Right? So, Lisa, always a pleasure listening to you. I feel like I get that feeling I'm sitting in a classroom. So anyway, I'll see you then. You see the topic, whatever you enjoy. See you.